You signed the receipt last spring at a club fitting. $55 for a single shaft upgrade. The fitter told you it was a mid-launch profile, low torque, stable tip section. You nodded. You paid. You never questioned what any of those words actually meant. That was not your fault. The shaft market is engineered to confuse. Every brand invents its own language. Some use stiffness profiles, others use kick point charts. A few just use numbers that look scientific but compare to nothing. You walk out of the fitting thinking you bought performance when you actually bought a story. Here is the truth that ties this together. Only one specification on any golf shaft determines whether it helps you or hurts you. It is not torque. It is not kick point. It is not the brand name silk screened onto the paint. It is the flex profile measured in cycles per minute, CPM, and 90% of golfers buy a shaft that does not match their swing speed by that single metric. If you have ever dropped $300 on a new driver shaft and seen zero improvement in dispersion, you know that quiet pinch in your chest when the hope wears off after the first swing. That feeling is not your swing. It is the shaft. The golf equipment industry generates about $2.8 billion annually in the United States. Shafts account for roughly 12% of that revenue, but the profit margin on a premium shaft is over 70%. A shaft that costs $40 to manufacture sells for $250 at retail. The premium is not in the material, it is in the confusion. Here is the evidence. In a 2019 study published in Sports Engineering, researchers tested 42 different shafts across 3 flex categories using a mechanical swing robot. They controlled for every variable except the shaft itself. The result was that swing speed variance between any 2 shafts labeled the same flex, 2 stiff shafts from different brands, was as high as 11%. 11%. That is the difference between a regular and an extra stiff in some brand charts. That 11% variance between stiff shafts is the silent thief in your bag. If you want to uncover more of these hidden forces that control your golf spending, subscribe, because the next layer goes even deeper into how the industry hides what matters. In the comments, type the flex you play right now and whether you have ever had it measured. You are not buying a stiffness. You are buying a brand's opinion of what stiffness means. Now, consider this. The same study measured CPM, cycles per minute, as the only consistent predictor of actual performance. CPM is the number of vibrations the shaft makes per minute when clamped at the grip and plucked like a guitar string. A shaft that measures 250 CPM is measurably stiffer than one that measures 240. There is no interpretation. There is no brand language. It is physics. The catch is that almost no fitting cart tells you the CPM of the shaft you just hit. They give you the shaft model, the flex label, and a price. They count on the fact that you will not come back 2 weeks later with a frequency meter and test whether the $200 shaft actually fits your swing speed. Let us look at how this mechanism works against you. Suppose you swing a driver at 95 miles per hour. The standard recommendation from every major shaft manufacturer for that speed is a stiff flex. But stiff can mean 250 CPM in one brand and 265 in another. At 95 miles per hour, you need roughly 255 CPM for optimal launch and spin. If the shaft you bought measures 265, you are playing a shaft that is effectively a full flex too stiff. Your miss goes right. Your attack angle flattens. You blame your swing. You do not blame the shaft because the shaft has a brand name you trust. The Royal and Ancient Golf Club, golf's oldest governing body, published a 2013 report analyzing club fitting data from over 1,200 amateur golfers. They found that 78% of players were using a shaft that did not match their swing speed within one full flex category. 78%. That is not bad luck. That is a system designed to sell shafts, not to fit them. Here is where the forensic layer gets deeper. The reason brands resist CPM labeling is that it exposes their inventory. If every shaft had its CPM written on the butt end, you could walk into any pro shop, test 3 shafts on a frequency meter, and pick the one that matches your speed. You would never need a fitting appointment. You would never overpay for a brand's marketing. Your local club does not want that. The fitting bay is where the revenue lives. A single fitting session charges $75 to $150 and leads to a shaft sale of $200 to $500. The fitter's commission is tied to the total sale. If you walk out with a $120 shaft that fits perfectly instead of a $300 shaft that looks good on the wall, the pro shop loses margin. Think about that commission structure the next time you sit down in a fitting bay. If you want to stay ahead of every hidden cost in your golf bag, subscribe, because we are just getting to the part that will save you hundreds of dollars. In the comments, drop the exact phrase, "If this resonates with you, there's a lot more where this came from." Link in the description if you have ever felt that a fitting was more about the upsell than the fit. Now consider what happens when you buy a premium shaft online. The seller lists it as stiff flex, low launch, low spin. You match it to your driver because the marketing copy says it is for aggressive swingers. You have no way to verify the CPM. You install it, you hit it. It feels dead. You buy another. This is the quiet exploitation at the heart of the shaft market. Brands know that shaft feel is subjective and that golfers develop a strong emotional attachment to equipment. If you bought a $60 shaft and it felt harsh, you would assume you bought junk and upgrade. If you bought a $300 shaft and it felt harsh, you assume your swing needs work. Same result, different price. If you have ever stood over a ball with a new shaft and felt a vague sense of buyer's remorse before even swinging, you have already been touched by this mechanism. The anxiety is not about your game, it is about the mismatch between what you paid and what you got. Here is the simple counter principle. Buy shafts by CPM, not by label. A 250 CPM shaft from a brand you have never heard of will outperform a 270 CPM shaft from the most famous name in golf at 95 miles per hour. The CPM range for your swing speed is quantifiable. It does not care about your loyalty to a logo. There is a tool called the Golf Shaft Frequency Analyzer. It costs about $140. Most club fitters own one. Ask your fitter to measure the CPM of every shaft you test. If they refuse, you are in a sales transaction, not a fitting. Walk out. Here is the data that closes this. In a 2021 replication study of the sports engineering data, independent researcher Tony Covey tested 25 driver shafts from 5 major brands, all labeled stiff flex. The CPM range across all 25 shafts was from 242 to 273. That is a range that covers 3 flex categories from regular to extra stiff. Same label, different reality. The single shaft that performed best at 95 miles per hour was a 257 CPM model from a brand that lists it as Stiff Plus. It cost $130. The most expensive shaft in the test, a $365 model from a major brand, measured 271 CPM, a full flex too stiff for the test swing speed. It produced the worst launch angle and highest spin rate of any shaft in the group. You paid for the brand. The brand did not pay you back. If this hit you, comment below which shaft you bought last and whether it actually changed your score. I want to know the gap between what you expected and what happened. When you understand CPM, the entire shaft market changes shape. A $200 shaft no longer looks like a performance upgrade. It looks like an option you can verify or reject based on one number. That number is freely measurable. It is written on the butt end of every custom shaft if you know where to look. It is the one spec that tells you the truth regardless of what the marketing says. The best shaft in your bag right now is not the one with the most expensive decal. It is the one that flexes exactly the right amount for the speed you actually swing, not the speed you wish you swung. The speed measured on a launch monitor last Tuesday after 18 holes when you were tired. That is the spec that matters. Everything else is a story you paid for, so the next time a fitter hands you a shaft and tells you it is mid-launch or low spin, ask for the CPM number. If they cannot give it to you, they are not fitting you. They are selling you a story wrapped in carbon fiber and marketing dollars. The quiet cost of that story is not the $250. It is the 18 months you spend compensating for a shaft that fights your swing. It is the rounds that feel frustrating for no reason you can name. It is the slow erosion of confidence in your own equipment. Every round you play with a shaft that fights you is a round you could have spent in flow. Subscribe so that tomorrow's round is the one where your equipment stops being a question. In the comments, tell us the one shaft you have bought that you immediately knew was wrong, and how many rounds you played before you admitted it. Golf is already expensive without paying for fiction. The clubs in your bag should be the most honest tools you own. They should flex the same way every single time you address the ball. They should not lie to you about what they are, and they definitely should not charge you a premium to do it. When you strip away the marketing language, the brand endorsements, and the pro shop commission structure, one truth survives. A shaft is a piece of graphite or steel that bends. The only question is whether it bends the right amount for the specific way you move your body. That number exists, you can know it, and once you know it, no label or price tag will ever sell you the wrong shaft again. That is not a golf tip. That is a quiet victory over a system built to keep you guessing. And the best part is, you do not need anyone's permission to verify it. That feeling of permission to measure is the start of a whole new relationship with your equipment. If you want to keep taking back control from a system built to confuse you, subscribe, because there are more hidden specs in your bag that operate the same way. In the comments, write the CPM of the shaft you plan to check next, or write unknown if you are just starting this journey. If you have ever opened your trunk after a round and looked at your clubs with something between affection and suspicion, wondering if they are actually helping or just along for the ride, you already know what this feeling is. It is not doubt in your ability. It is doubt in the equipment the market sold you. That doubt is the residue of every marketing claim you have ever heard. It is the product of a system that profits more from complexity than from clarity. And the only way to dissolve it is to replace faith with measurement. The good news is that measurement costs you nothing. A frequency meter at a local club builder takes 60 seconds. The number it gives you is permanent and verifiable. You do not need to trust the brand. You do not need to trust the fitter. You just need to trust a machine that counts vibrations per minute. And when the machine tells you your shaft is correct, you can finally step up to the ball without wondering whether the equipment is the problem. You can focus entirely on the shot. That is the entire point of buying better gear in the first place. So here is the simplest way to frame everything you have just heard. The shaft industry sells you a label. The truth sells you a number. And the moment you start shopping by the number, you stop being a customer of confusion and start being a golfer in control. Go check your shaft. Or better yet, the next time you are in a shop, pull a 7-iron off the rack and ask someone to measure it. Watch what happens to their face when you ask for the CPM. That pause is the whole game.
Tier Convention. Stowers.